Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second section of DXT program today. Well, I hope everyone has completed the simple questionnaire that we have presented to everyone just now. If you still haven't finished the questionnaire, we have plenty of time after our talk today, so don't worry about that. And now it's time for me to introduce our second speaker of today to everyone. And in this section, we have invited Dr. David Williams, the founder of the Global Digital MOJO, to share with us the current state of AI industry and some best practices. In his sharing, he will share the impact of design tools and processes, as well as image and assessment, and also what are the values that design profession brings to the creative and industrial applications. Dr. Williams holds a PhD in psychology and is renowned for his work in education and digital design that transformed Global Digital MOJO into an internationally recognized agency with offices worldwide. Founded in Shanghai and Hong Kong in 2009, the MOJO network now spans to Pune, Barcelona, Mexico City, Japan, and most recently, Taiwan. And Taiwan is actually where Dr. Williams is now located. Well, before I pass the upcoming section to Dr. Williams, as usual, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Williams, do remember to type your questions in our chat box. And if your question has already appeared in the chat box, simply click the vote button next to the question, as our system will rank the questions according to its popularity. Well, I think it's now time for me to pass the time and also the stage to Dr. Williams all the way in Taiwan, and he will join us virtually online. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Williams.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me very well. Wonderful, thank you so much. So hi, I'm David Williams, calling in from Taiwan, Taichung particularly. I'd like to thank first so much Hong Kong Designers Association and also Hong Kong Science Parks and also Create Hong Kong for organizing this this event, which is the fourth event. I'm sorry I cannot be with the team today, but as with many people in the world right now, I'm coming to you online. So today I've prepared a presentation, which I'm just going to share out the slides, and we can continue. So as an advisory board member for the DXT program, which is behind this this series of classes, I put together a presentation which is really talking about crossover between technology and design. Particularly, the technology I'm going to focus on over the next 20 minutes is artificial intelligence technology, a very broad term, and one I think which everybody is at least familiar with in the media. Now, to begin with, I'd like us to listen to some music. Always good to start with some music. So I'm going to be sharing out a link. If you can take a look. And just keep this in your background, and all will become clear why I'm sharing this link in a second. So if you watch carefully, you can play this link yourself. And if you just click on that, what you're actually listening to there is a wonderful piece of music, and this music actually is a music that was created by a collaboration between a machine learning software and a music composer. And their goal, their brief you can say, was to create music in the style of Taylor Swift. So as you listen to that, you can decide yourselves if that is an accurate representation of Taylor Swift. But that first example really gives you an idea of how different industries within the creative area are starting to use artificial intelligence software as a creative tool, as something that can change their creative process. And that's really one of the focuses that I have today. So please just maybe have that playing gently in the background, not too loud, so you can hear me. So how did I come into this story? Well, as was introduced, I run a digital agency headquartered in Hong Kong. I'm currently in our office in Taichung. But my background is actually in cognitive psychology. So I'm very interested in this combination of design, technology, and human experience. So it was very good to listen to the first presenter sharing some of the more human aspects of innovation and creativity, which is very, very important and interesting for me. I moved out to Shanghai, 12 years ago to set up my first design agency, originally from the UK. And that agency developed into my current company, MOJO, which I'm running now. I'm also teaching at Hong Kong PolyU in the design school. And I'll come back to that in a second because design schools are going through a transformation as well due to new technologies like AI. Now, the work I do is mostly related to the transformation of businesses with digital technology. So businesses from education to consumer electronics to lifestyle to hospitality. And many of these clients are asking, many of these companies are asking, what about AI? How does AI change my business? What do I need to know? As well as those clients, we also have the creative professions, particularly product designers, digital designers, asking, how does AI change my job? Now, that question's always been something that I've been very interested to answer. Way back when I was studying at university, I was lucky to study at Imperial College in London, and I was very lucky to have a super professor, Igor Alexander, who's one of the leading minds in artificial intelligence. And he introduced me to this crossover between psychology and artificial intelligence so many years ago. And it's really thanks to him that myself, I've really every day approached these three questions. So what is AI now and in the future? What are the applications of AI, particularly for the creative industries and where they cross over and intersect with business? And how will creative and business jobs change because of AI? Now, when we talk about AI, these are the kind of images we have, often quite, I would say, negative images. If you listen to our friend Elon Musk, who right now probably is preparing an explosive tweet about the share price of Tesla, or even Stephen Hawking, who passed away recently, they all have, I would say, quite at the very least, fearful view of AI and the general question of machine intelligence. It's as if the world has really woken up to AI in the past 5 years. But actually, we live with intelligence every day. Of course, we are human beings, and as I hope we all have, there's a brain in between our ears, and it's very good at certain things. It's very good at these 5 things. Okay, so deciding what to do, having a purpose, being able to predict the future, being creative, and most importantly, being self-aware. Now, if we're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, we better start from real intelligence, particularly human intelligence. What is AI good at right now? Well, if we take those 5 different areas, probably AI is going to be good at the first 3. So all of the applications that we're going to look at today really focus on doing the right thing, having a purpose, and making some pretty good predictions about the future. Where AI struggles more is in creativity and definitely in self-awareness. And we're going to come to some early steps in those directions soon and how they affect business. Now, as a professional, whether it's a designer, whether it's a startup, whether it's an engineering manager or graduate, what do you need to understand about AI? Well, a good place to start is a little bit of history. So I mentioned that right now we seem to be awake to AI, but that's not the first time. We're in a boom right now, but there have been earlier booms. We've seen the expert systems boom in the 1980s, which was really dominated by Japanese technology companies. And even earlier than that, we've seen the general AI boom back in the 1960s. Now, it's no coincidence that these booms have followed closely technology. They've also followed closely how the media has portrayed AI and this kind of learning technology. And now, of course, AI is very hot. So we're seeing a lot of stories, we're seeing a lot of interest in AI across a range of different applications. And it's something we're going to be looking at today. Now, in general, if you're going to talk about where we are now in AI, you could say that we are in the data boom of AI. So most AI now depends on lots of data. Okay, now this data can come from people, it can come from technology and sensors, it can come from business tools like point of sales, terminals. It can come from many places. The point is we need a lot of it. Now this is very different from the early AI. The early AI relied on models. Very smart people sat down and tried to make models of how humans think, solve problems, and create. Current AI doesn't care so much about these kind of models of humans. What current AI depends on is data. So most AI is of a machine learning variety. However, that is changing. And as we go through this current growth period, we will see more systems which combine a reliance on data as well as symbolic, or we can say common sense models about how the world works, how we solve problems. And we'll see a combination of these two. So that's a new trend. But in most applications, we are seeing this use of data. And by applications, we can talk about three different kinds. We can talk about narrow, broad, and revolutionary. Right now, most AI applications are quite narrow. They're limited to a specific domain, a specific kind of data. A few applications, particularly related to image classification, image recognition, related to language, such as language detection or automatic translation. These can be more broad applications. But the revolutionary AI, which is really the self-aware AI, maybe this is the kind of AI that we imagine when we think of the dangers of AI, the kind of AI that's shown in movies. This is very much in the revolutionary stage. Now, depending on who you ask, you're looking at maybe 50 years to 100 years to 150 years in terms of how this revolutionary IA will develop and come along. Now, most AI is falling into the left-hand category here, which is supervised learning. The point about supervised learning is it's pretty much like a student sitting in a classroom. The professor gets up, gives information, in this case data, to the student, and also gives them the answers, and teaches the student how to move from the data, from the knowledge to the answers. This is how most AI works now. So the AI needs to go through a training period, a very computational, intense training period that requires really high power computing, requires very high power technology. And of course, as computers have grown in power, so this kind of training period speeds up, becomes more complex. After this training period is finished, then the AI can be, you can say, released outside the classroom and taken into the real world and can start to recognize or be exposed to live data. And based on its learning, it will classify, in most cases, that data into different outputs. So in the example here, you can see three colors here. These would be the three outputs that it's been trained on. And based on whatever data it sees, it will tell you, well, this probably is output 1, or it's probably output 2, or it's probably output 3. These outputs can be predictions, they can be actions, they can be classifications or groupings, depending on what you're trying to do. Now, the more interesting AI is on the other side, which is the unsupervised AI, of which there are a few applications now, which doesn't have this training period. It learns as it goes. Now, this is much more like human learning in the real world. not in the classroom, which is a kind of controlled situation, but in the real world, like a car driving around a city for the first time, like a robot learning to walk. These would be potentially unsupervised learning applications. But right now, when we talk about these data-intensive applications, we're really talking about supervised learning. Now, to understand where we're going with some of these applications, let's look at some artwork. So I've got a little link here. This is another one for you to enjoy as I'm talking to you. Now, if everybody knows Salvador Dali, he's a famous Spanish artist. He is no longer with us, unfortunately, but he is very much alive in the Dali Museum in the US, and we can see what he looks like. Now, this is a really interesting application of AI in art. So I'm just going to share this one up again. Let's take a look. Okay, you can just play that. Suggest you mute your sound, and you can just watch that quietly in the background. So what you're seeing here is an application of facial AI. So this is looking at images of facial expressions and facial movements and creating fakes, creating expressions which never happened based on an existing face. Now, in this case, the face is TV recordings, video recordings of the real Dali when he was alive. He was a great media user. He was very interested to be filmed. So there's actually a lot of video of him. Now, these faces are learnt. In other words, the particular expressions, the particular way of Dali's face moving is learnt or trained in the AI. And then after the training, it can start to make its own new expressions, which look like they came from Dali's face. Now, there are industries now building up around this technology of deep fakes, many of them being used in the political sphere, basically showing videos of people saying things that they didn't say, or in situations that they were never in, which have been created by this, this kind of AI. So this is a very interesting application in the area of art, in the sense that you can create artworks which look like they are in the style, or even interviews with artists that look like they were given by the real person. So very interesting applications of AI in the media. Now, other applications, of course, AI is a very broad application base right now, from these very narrow applications through to some of the more general applications or broad applications I talked about. So to take you through a few, we're seeing a big application of machine learning in marketing, particularly digital marketing, which is a very data-intensive industry now. So here is a study that was actually made by Adobe, which is very interesting because Adobe makes design software, but they are moving now into digital marketing software, particularly analytics and automatic content creation. So you can see here some interesting differences between North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Now, if you scoop down to the bottom and you look at creative and design work, it's interesting to see that Asia Pacific companies are quite interested to use AI in creative and design work, which would traditionally be areas where AI isn't applied, as we saw at the beginning. AI generally is applied, as the chart shows, in terms of analysis of data. So you see all regions at the top there being very interested in applying AI, or actually currently using AI in analysis of data. So we're starting to see some creative applications of AI. Now, if we want to look at how AI is developed in terms of its ability, every year there is an image recognition competition, which is hosted by the AI community. And that's a really good measure of how machine learning, and particularly image recognition, is improving. So if you look at this chart, back in 2011, what we're seeing here is the number of errors that are made when studying a standard set of images. And you can see every year, the AI, the winning AI, and you can see the company that it's come from, the winning AI is making fewer and fewer recognition errors. That is, it's classifying the image incorrectly. So instead of saying it's a car, which a human could clearly see, the AI says that it's a tree, in a very gross example. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the human here, which is in red, we now see, since 2015, that AI, particularly dedicated or narrow image recognition AI, is scoring better than human beings in a recognition task. That is, it's making fewer errors than a human being. So we're seeing in some applications, AI and machine learning is actually extending beyond human ability. Now, other application areas, predicting disasters. Currently, I'm in Taiwan. The reason I'm here is I'm running a series of master classes with the Yunlin National University of Technology here in Taiwan. And I'm working with the design school to teach students how to build AI. And we've been doing some hardware work. You can see we've been playing around with some technology here, building some little AI units. And the application area for this, this masterclass is in predicting disasters, particularly earthquakes, typhoons, which are obviously very relevant to Taiwan and to Japan, but also things like coronavirus. Now here you can see an example of a way to predict disasters. Now you'd think that the way to predict a virus was to have some kind of testing. So the data that you'd have would be the number of positive cases, for example, that were being tested. The problem is that when there isn't a virus, there isn't much testing, so there isn't much data. So one thing that always is media. So in this example, companies have looked at Twitter and social media activity and done keyword spotting. And they've trained an AI on the media, we can say, traffic during different disasters, before, during, and after. And they've trained the AI with this data from the past. And now the AI can look at existing data and predict there is some kind of major disaster coming, and what it might be, whether it might be a flood, whether it might be a virus, basically disasters which can be predicted. Now, this is an example where we're learning through different kinds of data, not the data we'd expect, and being able to make predictions. Okay, we can see here the deep fakes here we talked about with artworks, so we can create new kinds of artworks. In medical applications, we can also see AI doctors' assistants. Of course, medicine is a very image-intensive profession, so lots of X-rays. That's perfect for AI to be recognizing potential dangerous colorings or tissue formations in X-rays. Even in the area of sports equipment, we see product design. So here, TaylorMade, the big golf brand, are designing the surfaces of their golf clubs through 3D printing and AI. And here we have, even in packaging and product design, we have Nutella worked with Ogilvy and Mather to develop an AI which could create actually labels for their products. So all of these labels, all these different designs have been created by an AI software based on some rules given by the design team. And that's very important. So we also see games and simulations, and also even in simple things like putting tags or titles on images automatically. So LinkedIn has been experimenting with an automatic title maker for any photographs that are uploaded. So for example, in that photograph, it would say woman sitting at desk with computer. So it would recognize the different objects in the scene and create a text description. So it's an interesting change from image to text. Now, I think by now we're coming to the end of the presentation. You probably need some inspiration. So I'm just going to switch out here. And I want to take you into a slightly different application. Okay. I'm sure all of you need some inspiring words right now. So I'm just going to share another link for you to I want you to use this yourself. Maybe actually, let me do it. Make it easier. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I've got InspireBot up here. Okay. InspireBot is an AI text generator, and it's been trained on the kind of motivational posters that you find on student bedrooms, or maybe these are social media posts that you receive every day to inspire you as you're starting your day. Well, this AI has been trained on those kinds of motivational words. And I'm just going to see if we can share that, because I'd really like you to see these wonderful quotations. Just give me one sec. Let me switch out. You can see over here. You need to see my finger here. Okay. Okay, so it's been trained on these inspirational words, and it's going to make some new ones. Now, these have never been seen before, so you're going to join me in a world premiere of these inspirational quotes. I hope you're ready for the first one. Here we go. Okay, popularizing puberty is meaningless if you don't stick to your guns. Moving words. Let's try another one. We are about to turn into a worker. That's very, very prescient. And one final one. We cannot keep falling in love. We can only keep discovering. Well, that's wonderful, because our first talk was really focusing on discovery and exploration. So it's a funny little tool, but it's an interesting example of how AI can learn. It's been trained on real inspirational words, which, to be honest, often are not making a lot of sense sometimes. And it's creating new ones based on the kind of word structure it sees, based on the kind of adjectives and nouns that it sees. And you see, they make sense. The entire way we look at life is insane. Look at that, it's wonderful. Now, that's never been seen before. So this is a really interesting application of AI to do something which we would think is very creative. It seems very, very creative. So as we move to a close, I'm just conscious we want to have some time for Q&A. Let me switch back. So there are, of course, weaknesses for AI, and I just want to finish up so you don't go away thinking that AI is going to solve all of our problems. I just want to go through a few of these weaknesses. The first of all is AI is not good at explaining itself. It's not very good at saying why it came up with a particular prediction or why it came up with a particular answer. The reason is that current AI doesn't really know anything. Not like you and I know that today is Thursday and today is my birthday, incidentally. AI doesn't know anything. All it has is patterns of data that it recognizes. And this is a real problem. And it's something which is a problem when, for example, your credit card is frozen and you want to know why. And you call up HSBC or you call up Visa and they say, oh, we don't know, our AI blocks you. That wouldn't be very good. You need to have a reason. So generally, AI is not very good. And in fact, some of the new AI systems that are being developed are being designed for explainability. The second area is black swan problems. So since AI has been trained on data and depends on its learning from that data, you better have the right data. If you have data which is somehow too specialized or too biased, then the AI will only predict in a certain area. Thirdly, specialization. We're seeing a lot of very expensive AI chips being developed. So companies are investing in that rather than investing in general computing, which will drive down prices, which is something we've seen over the past 30 years. So the possibility that our, I can say, reliance on cheap computing will not be an assumption anymore. The chips will get more expensive. Now, bias, of course, comes from that problem of garbage data in, garbage data out. And finally, creativity is more template-based, we would say. We're still not seeing the kind of creativity which designers can come up with. So I'm going to leave it there so we have time for problems and discussions in the Q&A. Let's avoid the kind of biases that we see in our AI here. Particularly here, we're seeing the classification of images being incorrect because the data hasn't been correctly managed and correctly trained. And we see these kind of situations arising, which are clearly very upsetting for different people. And I hope in the future we're going to see this kind of artificial art, which is being generated by AI, and something that we can all enjoy in Art Basel in Hong Kong in a few years. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'd like to welcome some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, for your comprehensive sharing with us. It's definitely a very fruitful discovery journey in the AI industry. Well, since time is running short, I think I'll take just a few of the questions from the floor. And for the first questions, one of the audiences would like to know, what are the differences you think between Hong Kong and also Taiwan designers?
Okay, well, that's a very, very good question for me because I run studios in both places. Well, first of all, I think there's a real positive for Hong Kong, which is the language issue. So in our growth here, it's been quite a challenge to find some good English qualification, good professional English level here in Taiwan. It's just made our talent search harder. On the other side, for Taiwan side, of course, Taiwan is a very comfortable place to live. It attracts a lot of people in terms of its lifestyle, the cost of living, and particularly now in this period of virus, a lot of people are feeling much safer here than they are anywhere else in the world. But I think Hong Kong and Taiwan definitely have the opportunity to collaborate. It's one of the reasons that we set up here. The office here, our studio works very closely with the studio in Hong Kong. We have a lot of exchange. So there's definitely room for improvement in the future.
And how do you feel actually for the Hong Kong designers to actually move or relocate to Taiwan? What are the opportunities in this?
I think it depends on the area they want to practice. I think Taiwan offers some really good opportunities in terms of consumer electronics area, so consumer electronics design. There are some very strong domestic brands here like Acer and Asus. In the area of AI, Taiwan is really positioning itself as a kind of AI center, and Google, amongst others, has invested a lot in AI research here. It's also one of our focuses here. So of course, a lot of people, I would suggest, could live in both places, could actually work between both places. They're very close together. Our friends over at Hong Kong Express normally offer very comfortable flights over to Taiwan. It's just 1 hour to fly over. And there are lots of opportunities for collaboration between Hong Kong and Taiwan. So even you come here, you don't have to only work here.
Well, actually, like Hong Kong and Taiwan is really near, and as what you've said, there are numerous opportunities in Hong Kong and Taiwan collaboration. Well, I can see there's one more burning question that I would want to invite you to take before we wrap up today's section. It's, since you've been expanding the Global Digital MOJO into different cities in the world, our audiences would like to know, what are the challenges or difficulties when you expand your business to overseas countries?
Wow. Yeah, I've been doing this for some years now. I originally came out to Shanghai to set up from France. I think that the challenges are always the same when we talk about professional services business, as we are. The challenge is always about people. It's finding the right people. Secondly, how supportive is the local government in helping you to start up, in helping you to get all of your paperwork settled down, helping you to find office space, and then supporting your growth. I think these are the two things which really make the difference. Generally, startups are led by very motivated, very passionate people. So it's not really a question of the founder's passion and the founder's expertise. It's more about the kind of support and the kind of environment that they can set up. If I can give an example, probably the most difficult place where I've set up a business is in Mexico. Not because I can't find people there. There are some amazing digital designers, technologists in Mexico. Just setting up the company is a really long process, so doing all of the paperwork. Of course, Hong Kong and Taiwan, we're blessed here that both jurisdictions have a good support for startups and getting all the paperwork set up. So that can be the real challenge that we have, the people and the process to set up.
Well, it's not like the art and finding the right people. It's also about like what kind of support you can get from the government in doing startups. So what a way for us to wrap up our presentation from Dr. Williams. So thank you so much again, Dr. Williams.